Hey there, everybody. Hi, all. You know it's going to be a good live when Simba has already made an appearance. He's been sleeping in this chair for about 2 hours. He's ready. Simba, always good to have Simba. He's sleeping now, so he can be ready to wake me up all through the night tonight. That's him. He gets all rested up, and then at 2 in the morning, let's do this, pops. So yeah, it's good to see you. Thank you, Catherine Austin and Karen Monk, for becoming members. That is so nice of you. I really appreciate it. It means very, very much to me. For those of you who are not sure about this, if you have not been at a live stream before, in order to comment or take part in the chat, you need to subscribe. And I think then it takes like a minute to propagate or whatever, and then after a minute, then you can start chatting. So that's all. That's pretty easy to do. Boy, this is so fantastic. It's really good to see you. It's Friday afternoon for me, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I see we have Wales, UK. Always good to see Kestrel here. Ursula's here from Austria. Hip flipping mama. Kelly's here. I saw FYI, Kelly. Yeah, I'd love it. Love if you could be a moderator sometime. My normal two moderators that I have, one of them, Detective Woe Buffett, who is literally 12-hour time difference from me. I don't think she's available because I don't see her in here. And then Mudcap Molly is not able to do it this afternoon either. So we'll just hip flipping mama. If you want to just kind of wing it, like, yeah, say, go for it. And then I'll set you up in the settings later. But one thing real quick, also with the subscription and everything, or with this live stream, from this live stream, when it's over, it's going to automatically redirect to a video that I just finished less than an hour ago. I just went nuts on it. I didn't even know I was going to do the video this morning, and was talking with my Everest historian friend Jochen Hemleb, who, as I call him, the architect of the expedition that discovered George Mallory. I just, out of the blue, I just said, hey, Jochen, there were so many people who just don't think the Chinese made the summit in 1960. I'm amazed at how many people are 100% convinced that there's no way in hell the Chinese succeeded. And as you'll see in the video after the live stream, he's like, hit record right now, bang. So I hit record, and he just went nuts. And he's like, here's a reason why you got to believe it. This, boom, boom. I was psyched. And so I just changed my plans, and I immediately went into editing a video, and that's it. So this live today is kind of a live stream, but on the 1960 Chinese, and we'll talk about that for a minute. But I really also want you to know how important your questions are. And I see him going like that. I want to get to them all. And also at the end of last week's live stream, I read through and realized I missed so many amazing questions and comments. And I apologize for that. And so I'll try to get to some of that today. But real quick, on the 1960 Chinese, the video that I posted a week ago today, so 1 week ago, was basically about the controversial 1960 Chinese ascent, where they claimed without irrefutable evidence to have summited 1960, thus making them the first to summit via the north. I know, George Mallory and Sandy Irvine, many of you believe that they did it first, but we have so little evidence from them, almost nothing, just a sighting up on the ridge, which is something. But so the video kind of broke that down, and I felt when I was done with the video, I felt convinced they did it. And then I started reading all the comments. I'm like, oh my God, they're so correct. Like all these doubters, like, that makes really good sense. So I waffled almost the entire week long, like, oh man, maybe they didn't make it. And then that's why I asked Yakin, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, slap, get back into line, son. And so he just went off. So I'm not telling you the ending of the video, but I think you're going to need to watch it. So I don't know, 1 hour from the beginning of this if you stay here, will automatically redirect. However, if you have autoplay on your computer or on your YouTube settings turned off, meaning if your videos end and it just freezes to like 10 or 12 different options, you need to click go. Like, so you need to say, let's do this. So, yeah. So 1960 Chinese, up for conversation today, if you want to, but as I might as well kind of move my way down, and I see Hip Flip and Mama had asked a question, which I think is a good question. Do they let anyone climb Everest, or do you have to prove that you are an experienced climber? Both. In China, on the Tibetan side, with the Chinese Tibetan Mountaineering Authority, you have to show that you have 8,000 meter peak experience. So, and in some respects, you have to show that you climbed an 8,000 meter peak previously in order to get a permit. And the reason, now you know the reason why so many inexperienced Chinese people go to Nepal to climb the mountain, because in Nepal, basically the only thing you need is a piece of paper that is your permit. And there are so many expedition organizers out there who could give a crap if you have experience or not, as long as you can pony up the money. So not, well-respected expedition operators, and I'm not to purposefully block them out, but some that I'm familiar with and know that carefully vet their clients would be Climbing the Seven Summits, which is Mike Hamill's company. Lucas Furtenbach is a great example of vetting clients. Let's see. There's also Garrett Madison Mountaineering. Like these guys, these guys are kind of mid-tier to super high level operators, and you have to show them that you have experience. And if you don't, they won't take your money. They just don't care. But then there are expedition operators, base low-level operators, like, you got the money, send the deposit and show up in Kathmandu on April 3rd or whatever it is, boom, and you're in. And no surprise here, those low-level operators are very frequently the ones who are cutting corners on providing their clients with good services, one of those being highly experienced high altitude workers or porters, most of them not guides at all. And that's why those expeditions are usually the ones that will have deaths. People die on those expeditions. So, long answer to kind of a cool question. So Dave from the beautiful mountains of West Virginia. Boy, how did you do, Dave, with the storms and everything, like the hurricane that went down there? That sounds like that might have been bad. Hey, I'm going to check the plug. I see my computer isn't plugged in. I don't want to go black. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. I think that did it. Okay. Oof. My computer battery absolutely blows. So, yeah. So any questions on certain things? And I'm trying to think, East Tennessee, we've got Joe Russo, Russo Jap 2. thought it was going to be Joe Russo's Almost Dead, which is a great Grateful Dead cover band, but no. So let's see. But from the boonies of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that sounds like you're closer to Ohio then. Very, very possibly. Bahamas. Oh, I'm stacking wood outside. I got the wood stove going out there. Must be nice there. Yes, and yes, Keegan John, can't believe I've managed to catch a live stream. Question for you. If they didn't make it, I'm assuming you're talking about the 1960 Chinese. Would it be due, or Mallory and Irvine? Would it be due to their clothing causing them to suffer from the cold, or their skill? I am gonna. Let's take Mallory and Irvine. Their clothing, essentially on a really mellow day on Mount Everest, like as they say, if the weather was really benign, the clothing that Mallory and Irvine had would have been adequate to make it to the summit without significant frostbite or just dying from exposure. Graham Hoyland, who was the one who initiated, one of the early people to initiate the search for Mallory and Irvine, and he was part of our 1999 expedition that did find George Mallory. He went on to do extensive studies, not only about the clothing that Mallory and Irvine were wearing, by wearing it on Everest and declaring that if the weather was benign, it would be sufficient. But then he also did an extensive study on what the weather conditions were on Everest on that day that Mallory and Irvine went, June 8th, 1924. And his research turns out that the weather was horrible. And he says that it was so bad that it probably is more along the lines of May 10th, 1996, during the disaster. He said the weather was so bad after Mallory and Irvine disappeared into the mist that it basically would have made it almost impossible for them to make it. Now, one of the reasons I love Mallory and Irvine, I look up to them. I pray that I'm wrong. But one of the reasons I never believed that they made it successfully, obviously, it was unsuccessful if they died anyway, but the location of George Mallory's remains was so far east on the face, really, really far away from the summit, for him to have made it all the way up there and back down and have no frostbite on his toes, none on his face. His hands were bad, but there's just no way. I think that if they had made the summit, they would have fallen off closer to the summit. Now, would Sandy Irvine's boot potentially still have gone to the central Rongbuk Glacier? Yes. So now let me jump to the 1960 Chinese. They had much better clothing. We're talking decades of, like that down-filled clothing. And the Chinese in 1959 literally took gigantic, I don't know if it was jumbo jets or tractor trailer trucks through Europe to go shopping for all their gear and clothing. And so when they went to Everest in 1960, they were outfitted as well as the best European or Chamonix guide, and very similarly outfitted as the 1963 Americans, who were the first Americans to summit: Tom Hornbein, Luke Jerstad, Barry Bishop, Willie Unsold. So they were very well prepared, extremely well prepared. I mean, in 1960 terms. Nowadays, it would probably look almost laughable. But so, long answer to a great question. Did Sherpa and Chinese? Okay, yeah. Did Sherpa or Chinese people see Mallory or Irvin's body before 1999? Yes. Kayla, thank you so much for your gift. That means very much to me. Keep up the great work. I will. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you for the thumbs up that people have given her for that. That means a lot. Thank you, Kayla. But yes, now there are several instances of sightings of Mallory and or Irvin before 99. Probably the one that we went on from George Mallory was the sighting of Wang Hongbo, who left Camp 6, the Chinese Camp 6 in 1975, went west, if you will, from his camp 15 or 20 minutes and found an Old English dead. And now it's almost virtually certain that that was George Mallory. There are other instances of the 1960 Chinese seeing Irvin because the altitude given was higher, several hundred feet or a couple of hundred meters, I guess I should say. And so we know of two, potentially two, but probably more people from 1960. And then also in 1975, and then kind of a random sighting in 1995 that I want to do some research on, but it's been hard to get it, by a Sherpa named Chiring Dorje, who came across the body of a person way up near the ridge. So yes, sightings had taken place, and it would be if Irvin lost his life where I think perhaps he ended up, which was high above Mallory. It would have been almost impossible for the 1960 Chinese to not see him. And that would also go for the 1975 Chinese. So, yeah. So, watching from London. All right. Good to see you. That's cool. I don't know if you saw my interview with Julie Summers, who's the great niece of Sandy Irvin. I've gotten some amazing compliments. And Julie keeps writing me, oh, my nephew or my cousin or my aunt saw the interview and they loved it so much. And so had fun interviewing Julie about her great uncle Sandy and what she felt when his boot and foot was discovered in early October of this year by that National Geographic team. Yeah, Kelly, you believe that they did make the summit, the Chinese in 1960. And yeah, so what happened was the cameraman who originally was going to stay down by the first step and film with his motion picture camera from afar, the summit team, he swapped out from, I guess the guy's name is, what is it, Chu, I think it was. That's his first name, Q-U. And come on, kitty. And so he swapped out with him and went on the summit team. And obviously when it's dark, he couldn't film. And so filmed after they got back down from the summit pyramid toward the second step. And as Jochen says in the video that will premiere in 40 minutes or 30 minutes, that he believes that's irrefutable proof that they were at least at the base of the summit pyramid on the lower side of the third step. So that's kind of cool. You should watch the interview, which is kind of cool because that's not the only thing he talks about. But yeah, so let's see. To be honest, it doesn't matter if Mallory and Irvin didn't summit, as what they accomplished in their attempt set the precedents for others and educated the world. Yes, absolutely. I've always said it doesn't matter if Mallory and Irvin made it or not, because what they did still was one of the most exceptional climbs in the history of humankind. And even if they failed, it takes nothing away from what they did. As I've said in my public presentations, the boots that they were wearing, if there was a snowstorm here in New England, I wouldn't even shovel my driveway wearing those boots. They're just, it's inadequate. So these guys were superhuman, real, real tough people, and what they did, how high they got, at least 28,000 feet, whatever that 8,600 meters or something like that. I knew that Simba was going to hear me talking and just like need attention, which I don't mind, but he always needs food and stuff like that. So I'm glad that you saw that interview with Julie, John. Yeah, really cool. So John Brewer, when will they look for Sandy Irvine again? Well, we don't really know, because the Chinese, the Tibetans, if you will, from that side of the mountain, are the ones who essentially control the flow of people coming in and out. You can't sneak in there. There's no way you can just pop into the central Rongbuk Glacier. And but I would imagine that maybe the National Geographic team has an interest in returning. On the other hand, the potential for them to just say, we've got a good film, let's just focus on the film instead of spending all this time and money, when the Chinese Tibetan Mountaineering Authority could still shut us down after all that money is already spent. That to me is almost a coin toss. I think they've got a film with just the boot, even though that was the unsuccessful attempt to ski the Hornbein Couloir by Jim Morrison. So it's a big I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people want to go there. We'll see, but the mountain would be closed now, and then probably in April the next teams go in for the pre-monsoon climbing season. If you've seen the map, you go up the Rongbuk Glacier, and then it takes a left turn up the East Rongbuk, where everybody goes. And to go straight up the mountain, you can't, you are adorable. You can't just take off up there, because they have people, they literally keep an eye on you, not because that, look, don't let that guy get out of your sight. It's just they do. That's how they operated over there. They're really, they are concerned. They don't want people doing their own thing on that mountain, and you got to respect it. And I kind of like that. I really think that's something I appreciate greatly. So let's see. You mentioned that the camera, John, was supposedly found by the Chinese, but they ruined the film. My question might be better posed to Eastman Kodak. Yeah, so I have an interview on this channel, which I have to find. I'm sorry, little buddy, but with a guy from Kodak, and he's a film expert. He's from the museum, like the Eastman Kodak Museum, and he talks about the viability of being able to develop the film if it has not been destroyed, and which is possible. I mean, they found, was it Amundson's, or I don't know. I think that when Shackleton disappeared in the Antarctic, they sent out, there were, or actually before that, they sent out support teams, and one of his support crew that never met with them, they cached a camera that was found 100 years later, and the film was developed, and it was absolutely beautiful stuff, like gorgeous. So if it's cold, frozen, and no lights getting in, you could develop film in 1,000 years theoretically. So yeah, you just have to be very careful and professional about it, which I wouldn't touch that. But the Chinese had no oxygen or water or experience. Well, they did actually have experience, and they did have oxygen in 1960. They trained, they were, some of them had no experience prior to 1958, but they were recruited, had a significant training regimen, and also did forays into the Pamirs. And so they did have mountaineering experience in the recent 2 years overall. Like if you're looking at Chris Bonington or Doug Scott or, modern, well, relatively modern day climbers. They just grew up and they climbed their entire lives. So generally speaking, they did have experience. They did have oxygen most of the way, but they conserved it. The water thing, I know that this doesn't really count because it was half the time, but let's take 2016, on my summit day, I hadn't had anything to drink since, probably 6 in the afternoon, maybe took one little sip of water, left for the summit. When I looked at my water 4 hours later, it was literally a block of ice, so no water. And I got back down to my high camp. It was only a 12-hour round trip, but there's like 13 or 14 hours, like barely even thought of water. So the human body can do it. I'm not saying, I just don't think you can count them out because of the water thing. But I realize that it's an issue. And Yakin talks a little bit about it in the video. Don't jump over here. I see you. But it's, okay. Do you think that if they find the rest of Irvine's remains, that it will help date when he fell to the glacier? 100%, George. Absolutely 100%. Yakin and I have a pretty good idea. It's all theory. We're almost positive, given we think we know where to look, actually, based on when we theorize he fell down the mountain. Here's the only hint I'll give you. It was before 1999. But if you measure the rate of flow of the central Rongbuk Glacier, you kind of do the math, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so, yeah, I will know. And now this is the one thing about the boot. This is probably why the National Geographic crew, which I think is fine. This isn't conspiracy stuff, but probably why they're like, don't tell anybody where they found the boot, just because you just do the math and it's obvious what year he landed on the beginning of the glacier. So yeah, that's kind of cool to consider, right? You can think about it that way. Now, this is another thing that people don't think about, how amazing it would be to really do a full search on the central Rongbuk Glacier. Here's just two. Marty Hoey, who died in was it 82 with the American North Face expedition? She was standing right next to Jim Wickwire, I think it was, or something like that. Then there's also Marco Siffredi, the snowboarder who endeavored to ski from the summit. He disappeared. Right. And then there's also the Arsentiev, that guy. I can't think of his first name, but he died in 98 with his wife, Frances Arsentiev, she was the purple down suit person that was called Sleeping Beauty. And Ian Woodall and his wife moved her body out of sight. But so all these people, there's a lot of people who could be down there. So I think it'd be fascinating to do really extensive search of the glacier. I don't think people will get permission to do it. So yeah, James, you like my cat. That's Simba. He's the man, and he's all right. He seems like he's going to be okay for a couple more minutes. Watching from Liverpool, Mark, welcome. Love your channel. Would love to get to the bottom of this Mallory and Irvine, as Irvine was from Birkenhead, which is about 20 minutes away from me. That is so cool. Here's kind of a cool thing that I wish I had left in my interview with Julie Summers, because I forgot to ask her and I had to email her. I'm like, oh my God, the question I've always wanted to ask. And I guess I'll give you this now because I'm going to write it in one of my chapters. But I had always heard that after his parents learned that Sandy wasn't coming home, that they left the back light of the house on for years, and the back door unlocked, just in case Sandy came home in the middle of the night. Like I can't even tell this story. Like I literally will start crying if I go too far there. Being a parent I have a 23-year-old, right? Sandy's age, and a 27-year-old. That is that when I heard that, it just broke my heart. His parents were devastated. And then Julie Summers told me that it wasn't true. So I was like, shit, I shouldn't have asked her. But she did say that they live so far out of anywhere where there were any street lights, that the only way that the kids could find the way home after dark, their children, was to have a light on. So technically the lights were on. Anyway, yeah, I get really emotional when I talk about that. I just feel like, oh, Sandy must have been the coolest guy and such a sweetheart, and his parents must have just been gutted. And then he had a younger brother who idolized him. His name escapes me right now, just absolutely worshiped him. And I can imagine for the rest of his life, his brother must have been so devastated that his big bro wasn't coming home. I'm not going to cry, but I mean, I lost my big brother, and shit, man, let me tell you, losing I idolized my brother. He was God to me. He got me into climbing, into the mountain realm. And when he was gone, like, there's not an hour of my life, well, maybe an hour, that I don't think of him, but he's always just here. So yeah, I gotta, yeah, I get really emotional about stuff like that. I'm such a softie. I cry kind of easily. Unless I'm angry, then I'm like, but I'm not angry right now. I just love you guys so much. So, yeah, so hopefully I answered that. Everybody likes my kitty who's Simba. That's gross. Okay, let me just do that. So let's see, what's my gut feeling? Do they have more than just the boot and the foot? The National Geographic team? No, I don't think so. I had not really pondered that too much. I just give it a 90% chance that's all they have. I suppose there could be more, but if they found the entire remains of Sandy, I think we would have known. And I don't think they're holding back from that, because that would be kind of odd, like, because if they did and then revealed that in a year, you imagine how the Irvine family, they'd be like, F you, like, are you serious? You found his body and you waited just to make the film premiere bigger. So I don't think there is a certain calculated element to how a film crew, documentary crew, like holds on, puts their cards close to their chest. It kind of feels cold and stuff. I don't think they're that cold and calculating. You never know. But they do have an oxygen bottle, theoretically from 1938, which is cool. And everybody wants to know about that. And I haven't seen any of it. I've had pictures of 1938 O2 bottles, and seriously curious about that. Where was it? Was it close to where Sandy was? Was it farther down the glacier, up the glacier? Was it stuck in rocks? So that's kind of cool stuff. India, oh, really cool. Welcome to you at 1:52 in the morning. That's absolutely exceptional that you're awake watching. If you want to fall back asleep, just keep listening. I had somebody, they didn't realize that I thought it was hilarious, and they meant it as a compliment. They're like, I love watching your videos. They put me to sleep. And I was like, what the? They meant it like something was soothing about them. I thought it was hilarious. And then somebody in a comment one time wrote like, wow, look at this senior citizen. He's so informed. And I thought, I know I'm older than most of you guys, but senior citizen, holy crapola. I thought it was funny. And then I immediately hearkened to the movie Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey, who gets mugged by a woman on a cart who was probably 70. And I digress. Anyway, so Port Townsend, Hey, Dave. Dave M. Yes, we have a friend in common. Tell Andy I said hello. That is incredible. Super cool to see you here. I texted Andy recently and he didn't reply. I texted Jake recently too. Everybody's busy and getting into winter stuff. So, okay. So I just something about any plans for live lectures. Oh boy, I just lost it. Where did that go? Let me get down to that. In 2025 on the East Coast, the discovery of Irvine's body would no doubt be a sellout audience. Yeah, I'm putting together like a speaking kind of not a tour yet, but the package and the 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 framework for what that would be. I did a talk locally to me on June 8th, and it was a very small kind of a dinner event with live music. And then I did a talk for these people, and all these people came up like, oh my God. And this is obviously before Sandy got found. And I've done hundreds of talks around the world, but since COVID, it just everything changed. So I'm going to revamp the talk based on the Irvine discovery. As a side note, in 2017, I did a talk in Maine, Freiburg, Maine, and a woman, a media marketing person, a good friend of mine, she's just a master at this stuff, put this big sellout audience together, and we invited local dignitaries. A woman who's was on the Olympic ski team, downhill skier, and a state police friend of mine who I carried the New Hampshire State Police flag to the summit for him, and then Mark Sinnott came to that talk. This is 2017, and he called me a couple days later, and he's like, "So you really think you know where Sandy Irvine is?" Yeah, and it was because of my talk that got the whole 2019 Irvine search expedition going, and I love it. Literally, page 1 of his book, The Third Pole, he's at my talk looking up at the screen of a picture of George Mallory, in all his glory, if you will. So yes, if you want to, I don't know how you PM me, but in the about section, I have an email address. You could always email me and just kind of keep in touch. Or another thing that you could do, I have a free Patreon, so you don't have to pay. If you want to, that's cool. But so it's patreon.com/Everest Mystery. Anytime, if I were going to ever do a live talk, I would absolutely promote it there. So that might be something for you to think about doing. Just then you know, and if I forget to email you or something, I'll always promote it there, and probably on this channel too. Thank you for asking that. My highest mountain is Mount Washington in John, so you worked at the Mount Washington Hotel. My wife and I go there frequently, either for dinner or appetizers, and we sit on the back deck and order drinks and apps and look up at Mount Washington, the most gorgeous mountain. I love it so much. Allen Aviation, assuming that Mallory was found precisely where he died or stopped falling, couldn't that origin of the fall be pinpointed? Yeah, basically, 100%. So let's just say theoretically, Mallory and Irvine are roped together. Doesn't matter who fell first or second, but just let's say, generally speaking, they were on the same line. Even if George Mallory, dies, and Sandy, cuts the rope and crawls or walks and goes 100 feet or more, either way, hundreds of feet, they're still going to go down to that glacier, hundreds of feet, and or 100 meters or so. But the Rongbuk Glacier, like just think of this vast face kind of funneling down to the glacier, which is smaller, and then it's going to start moving, and then a crevasse like a bergschrund and falls in, and so could get pushed this way or that way depending on where more force is. But yeah, that's exactly what we think to be the case. And my interview with Mark, this is the video I was working on today before Yakin talked to me. My interview with Mark Sinnott, which was from 2022, which is has like 500,000 views. And then my interview with Jamie McGinnis, both of them talking about the Chinese or Tibetans, but Chinese teams found Irvine and either removed. Now you got to think of and as Jamie said, threw the body off. You have to think about the language barrier, even with a rough knowledge of the English language. If the Chinese said, we removed the body, that's just the word they use. They might have meant, pushed him down or something. And so that still holds very true, the possibility that happened. Mark and Jamie both are right on point. Mark, somebody said, I didn't even remember this, that supposedly, I don't remember talking about this, that supposedly the body was removed and brought to Lhasa. I'm not picturing that in my mind. I'm just thinking that that's what happened to the camera, supposedly. But I'll do more research. That's the video that I was in the middle of. And then Yakin threw me for a loop today. So, yeah, I drove most of the way up Mount Evans without supplementary. Is Mount Evans the one in Colorado that has the road to the top, like Mount Washington does? Mount Washington also has a train up to the summit, which is a crazy 6,288 feet. I think that's 1,419 meters or something like that. Pateo, except Irvine's body may have broken apart during his violent fall. Maybe more remains will be found. Absolutely. I'm glad that you said that, because one thing I forgot to mention, because this is another thing I've been researching, is that Günter Messner, which was Reinhold Messner's brother, who disappeared on Nanga Parbat during their ascent in 1970. There's also the possibility that, imagine a body goes down into a crevasse or a glacier, and the glacier is moving, and like a leg is frozen into it, but the body's above it, and then the leg is here, totally not going to move, but everything above it is moving, and that could be enough force to break it, if you will. It's kind of gruesome to think about it, but glaciers are pretty powerful, so yeah, so let's see. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. Loving the channel. I think I got the questions that are up there. How about the analysis of the foot? Chris, thank you. So what I believe is that everything in the boot, meaning the foot, was left with the Chinese, I should say the Chinese Tibetan Mountaineering Association. So Tibetans there too, but and that they're handling the DNA testing. Everything's there, and that whatever the DNA sample that they need for that test is already at a lab. I believe that's in Beijing, and then that's going to be matched with a DNA sample from, I believe Julie Summers said, maybe her aunt, who's only one generation separated from Sandy. These things take a long time. I don't know if you ever watched that TV show Dateline on it's the worst, but it's like all these murder mysteries in the United States, for those of you who don't watch it, or 2020. And whenever there's like this murder mystery, and when they're doing DNA tests, it takes months for the DNA test results to come out. Like, even if it was O.J. Simpson, like months. And wouldn't you think, like, come on, let's go, baby, let's snap this up. So could be months away, which would be more opportunity to do another video back then. So good evening from the UK. Yes, Daniel. Um, and yeah, gravel face. I feel like he is now part of the mountain. He might be. He, he might be. He might be deep underneath and not, and he might not show up for years, years and years and years. It's possible. It's really possible. And that boot or foot, maybe just who knows how far apart it was either. So it's hard to say. I mean, I do hope we find more of him. So hey Tyson, yeah, I climb out of my truck and take the ski lift to Mount Hood. Oh, you got some good skiing out there. What about Mount Baker? That's a great mountain too. Um, Pateo G, has any efforts been to made to identify the remains that have already worked their way back down the glacier? So yes, I think I just covered that. Czech Republic, great to see you. Love that country. Did a short mini tour through the Czech Republic on my way home from a wedding in the Republic of Georgia, which was amazing. That was an insane trip. And then on the way home, I stopped in the Czech Republic and just was just absolutely enamored with the beauty of it, and stopped in these great pubs and drank a ton of beer and stuff like that. It was really, really fun. So, Serge Lachance, given your estimate of the glacier's rate of travel, I bet you would find something. Yeah, no doubt. Given the other bodies as well, as I said in my previous live stream, not a lot of people go up there. It is not it's not an oft traveled place. And that's because the main route travels up the East Rongbuk, which is a kind of a skinnier arm that swings around where both glaciers meet back up at the North Col, right? And the reason most people don't climb from the central Rongbuk is because you've got 3 or 4,000 feet virtual rock and ice above you, as opposed to kind of, if you will, what George Mallory discovered as the best way up the mountain from the North Col, a ridge that, you know, kind of a spine that took you right up to the ultimate ridge. So not many people go up there. And nowadays, it's even harder. Like, I don't even know how National Geographic got in there. I think that's really interesting. My gut is that they probably ponied up some serious money and to do it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything nefarious in there, but they don't just let people go toting around up there anymore. You know, 15, 20 years ago, sure, it was a different deal. But in the days of Mallory and Irvine, Sam Peef, were cooking stoves available and were climbers able to eat? Yeah, yeah. There were cookers, like there were stoves up there, and they made these kind of airtight. What was Mallory and Irvine had the Unna cooker, UNNA. I think that was the brand or something. And they had these stoves that would boil. Yeah, and you could make hot food up there and eat, not just cold stuff, but you'd have to melt water up at high camp too, so you could drink tea or coffee or whatever. So yeah, but much more archaic than now. Now they're just these, you know, butane or propane, no, more butane, um, little canisters. You put them in there, and they're so much easier to light if you keep them relatively warm. Boom, and they just instantly light up, and then you hang them from the middle of the tent, and so you're boiling your food, you know, kind of here in the middle. If you're in the tent with two other guys, like, whoa. And if it's really windy, like it was in 1999, we were up at Camp 5, about just under 8,000 meters. It was violently shaking, and it was the stove was doing this, and the snow and the water kept popping out because the stove was going up sometimes like this far and going out. So we had a hard time up there. So yeah, best regards from Germany. Good to see you. That is awesome. Nice to see you. Just talked to Jochen Hemleb, who now lives in Italy. Did I get the flag right? uh yeah, I'm like, I sometimes get flags wrong. Let's see. Mallory did Mallory have summit rocks in his pocket? Beautiful question. No, they did. He did not. And this is also one of the things that just really kind of gnaws at me sometimes. Um, I'll see a comment, and this is also the interesting thing about being a YouTube creator. So I'll do a video and I'll work for 4 days on a video, and I'll be like, I'm going to cut that out. I just don't want it too long. And people will leave these scathing comments about everybody on the 1999 expedition. And it's like, if you were watching a TV show, you wouldn't be able to do that. Or if you were watching Netflix or listening to the radio or a podcast, you wouldn't be able to poke me with a needle, right? And so these people are like, those losers from 1999 weren't looking for summit rocks. Nope, we weren't. But we also weren't looking for an altimeter, but we found one. We weren't looking for a watch, but we found one. We weren't looking for a pencil, an envelope with notes scribbled on it, a little piece of string, meat lozenges in a tin, weren't looking, or mint cake. We weren't looking for that, but we found it. If there were summit rocks in any of those pockets, mark my word, 100%, they would have come down with us. Nobody would have said, hey, interesting, a summit, a rock. No way. Like, that place was sacred ground. Everything was taken down and marked accordingly. No summit rocks. And so what I say to people, oh, you blew it. You didn't look for summit rocks. We didn't, but there were none. So if that's the way that you say they made it or not, didn't make it, no summit rocks. Oh, well, then maybe Irvine had it. Doubtful. Like, Sandy Irvine could care less about a summit rock. That's all George Mallory stuff. And that's still conjecture anyway. Anyway, I'm just going off on a tangent. I don't know if I'm going to get to all the questions, but I'm going to try. We got about 10 minutes. And then my next video interview with Jochen that I think you'll enjoy will premiere right after it. And now we've got my little buddy back snoozing, who I'm going to take for a walk before it gets dark. But Desmond, Molly, and Jack Straw. All right, so you're a Beatles fan and a Grateful Dead fan, Serge. That is awesome. Jack Straw, one of the great Grateful Dead songs. Kelly, my belief was they left it on the mountain. I'm not sure you can remove left. Are you talking about Mallory's remains? I think you might be. Mallory, yes, 100% was left there. The boot of Sandy Irvine's was definitely taken off, but I know two people who have gone back using GPS coordinates to the location of George Mallory, and they were unable to locate him. But that could be because of snow, rockfall. My gut is, in the 75 years leading up to when Conrad Anchor found him, but when our team discovered that, he was probably covered the vast majority of the time. That's my gut. But what, in my opinion, it would be the best team to go and find Irvine's body. I would say my thought would be that Jochen Hemleb would be the person I would want. He knows more about that mountain than anybody, maybe other than Jake Norton. But Jake knows more about up the mountain. Jochen has studied every single glacier and every expedition. He'll tell you about every expedition, where they went. He'll talk about the 1933, Tillman and Shipton, and in 1938, these guys who went up into that was 38, into the central Rongbuk looking, and there's this place called Tillman Lake. He'll tell you who's been there, he knows everybody who's camped there. He knows the speed of the glacier. So I just say Jochen would be the man. And there's you won't need really any technical skills to be there. Well, maybe minor, but down low, as you saw the picture of Jimmy Chin with the boot, he's in basically sneakers, there's no deep crevasses there. You're just walking on gravel, and so you'd have to be careful, but you couldn't you don't need to be a mountaineer. Even though Yakin is training in that, it wouldn't need to. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Wow. That's incredible. Peggy, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. That deserves a lot of likes. I appreciate that so much. Um, so let's see. We got a few more minutes. See if I can knock off a few more. Okay. Now, 1R. That's a very cool name, and the way you have the things out there. I'm not a climber. Once hiked my way up to the Griffith Observatory, cool, in outside of Los Angeles. But if I'd like to see Everest from below, do I need a permit? Yes. If you were endeavoring or wanted to trek to Everest Base Camp, you do need a permit. It's not that expensive. And then what you would probably want to do is join on to a trekking group, or you don't have to in the Everest region right now, but you should find maybe a porter or somebody experienced. But that would be, so I would say latch on to an expedition company if if you have a little bit of ability to pay something, and then you can trek in there. If you have a porter who costs very little day to day, that person can carry the heavy stuff that you'd only need at night. You just put water, nice jacket, extra pair of socks, and rain gear, and a camera on your backpack, and trek lightly. Totally doable, nothing technical. And you go slowly, maybe over the course of 10 or 11 days, from a village called Lukla, and that's at about 9,000 feet. No idea what that is in meters. 220, would that be 3,000? Yeah, so like maybe 3,000 meters. So yeah, you could do it, but you do need a permit, and that's easy to do. Cake to do, but you do it before you fly into Lukla. So I would love it if you did that, because it's a must do if it's a dream of yours. If you're still standing by Mallory's body and looking up the mountain, wouldn't Irvine's body have landed? Yes, right on the glacier below. Yeah, Mallory was out of the. Yeah, okay. I know that I just skipped a lot what I was reading. Would Mallory wouldn't have people been passed by Mallory, and wouldn't Irvine have been kind of in the same general location? The main route that was set by that the Chinese followed in 1960, almost to the T, was set by the 1933 British, and it went up a spine from the North Col, and then kind of hit the ridge, and then took the turn to the right. So that's a trail that circumvents the vast face of Everest. And when people fall from the main route, they go down into this area that, I guess, generally speaking, you could say would be a catch basin. Some people have referred to it as the Rainbow Valley, because these bodies with different brightly colored clothes or outer gear fall there. But Mallory fell into that. And so only one person that we know of saw him. Irvine was up higher on the mountain, much closer to the main route. So the 60 Chinese would definitely have seen him and not Mallory, if that makes any sense. And maybe I'll revisit the map that I did in a video recently that kind of talks about that. Let's see, a couple more questions. I know it's almost 4, so on my time, let's wrap up a couple more, and I'll do another one of these maybe next Thursday or Friday. Maybe I'll try to do these weekly. I love to do it. It's a great opportunity to meet you and spend time with you all, and hear the things that you're curious about. And it gives me a great sense of connection to you, because truth be told, really one of the reasons I did this channel was to connect to people and try to, even though I kind of get wired up and fired up sometimes and might rant now and then in the live videos, I just want to try to have a positive place where people can get together and debate things, and even be vehemently opposed to each other and how they feel, but get kindly together and discuss this and say, we're all in it. We're all in it together. Like, you could disagree with me 100%, 180 degrees, the opposite direction. And I'd be like, you know what? You could be right. And nobody's right. Well, maybe some people are right. We just don't know. So that's the reason for all of this. And so next Thursday, maybe Wednesday, let me know in the comments below what you prefer, and if I do one of these a week. And then also for the members, I'm not trying to be Mr. Exclusive here, because I'll do this for free Patreon people too. I'm going to do a Zoom call for members and Patreon people, and it'll be a Zoom, so all your faces will pop up and you will talk like that, and that will be fun. I'll do that in the next week or two, maybe before the end of November, because it's kind of a value added for members and people who join the Patreon. But there is a free Patreon. I'm not trying to exclude anybody. Just wanted to let you know. Wow. Greetings from the North Sea coast. That is so cool. So let's see. Chris M. What pieces of evidence would convince the world that Irvine and Mallory reached the summit? I thought you mentioned the rocks and, of course, a camera. Is there anything else that would work? Yes, well, if there's a photograph on the summit, if the camera's found. Julie Summers said the only thing that would do it would be if they find Sandy and there's a note in his pocket that said, "We made it." And then, even then, you don't know, right? But he wouldn't lie. I mean, why would he? But I think that's it. So it's probably a mystery that may very well never be solved. And I love that. I love unsolved mysteries. They're beautiful and we need them. We need to be able to dream. HW plays, have I ever summited Everest? Yes, I have. 2016. And I'll tell you when. It was May 22nd, 2:40 in the morning. We went really fast. We left at 8 o'clock in the evening, ahead of all the others, because I didn't want one person near me on that day. We went up, went really fast, got to the summit, right, 6 hours and 40 minutes later, and had the summit to ourselves. The coolest thing in the world was that it was a full moon, the full Buddha moon, full moon tonight here in the United States. And at 2:40 was the apex of the full Buddha moon. So when we got to the summit, took our headlamps off. I was just with a friend of mine, an amazing Sherpa named Lakpa, and we took our headlamps off, and the world glowed. And down about 25,000, under 8,000 meters, there was a layer of clouds and just all these other mountaintops sticking out above. It was absolutely surreal and beautiful. And thank goodness Lakpa had spare batteries on his camera, because my camera was dead, and he changed the batteries and took about 30 or 40 photos. I'm trying to think where I might have some. I might probably have a picture of me on the summit on my Instagram, or I don't really do Facebook that much anymore, but I'll post something maybe in a future video. But so let's do, I hope this doesn't disappoint. I'm going to do one more question. So could you ask someone who's doing the ridge route to throw off a glove with a GPS tracker and see where it ends up and how fast it moves? That's a great idea. Sure, that's a great idea. Why not? Yeah, that's doable. Probably a glove wouldn't go all the way down. You'd probably want to put it. You'd have to trundle a big boulder, probably a big rock, and they don't take kindly to pushing rocks off. That would be tough. I think it's doable. It is doable. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. That is an awesome suggestion. And then we find out. It's just like when I was on Denali in 2001 filming a documentary about cold and altitude. We had this NASA guy who was an astronaut who fixed the Hubble telescope, and they gave him these pills, and he'd swallow these gigantic pills, and it would take all his internal coordinates, like how, body temperature and stuff like that. And we ended up finding out where those pills went every day when the temperature of that pill went down to 20 degrees under freezing. He had to swallow another pill. So I'm glad you like these, Smiler, that you enjoy these. I do too. So okay, I don't know if this is a good one, but Kay, have any modern psychics communicated with Mallory? I don't know. That's a great question. I would say let's go for Sandy. Sandy's probably got a lot to talk about. I don't know if you've seen my psychic video. Boy, some people did not like that. I couldn't not do that video. It's just the big picture. And this is how some people come to their determination of whether people made it to the summit or not, whether Mallory and Irvine were successful. Why not? I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was fascinating. Where is that book? Oh dear, let's see. It was this book, Geraldine Cummins by Charles Fryer, An Inside Story of the Greatest Medium from Ireland. She met with George Mallory. Let me tell you about two other cool books. Detectives on Everest, which we will mention in the video that's going to premiere the minute I go bye-bye tonight, that I hope you'll stick around and watch. It's about 20 minutes long. This is Jochen Heinleb and Eric Simonson. And then this book by Robert Edwards, Mallory, Irvine, and Everest, The Last Step But One. This book, it doesn't read like a novel. It's like almost like a study guide. And it has every coordinate, every theory, you name it, everything found on the mountain relating to Mallory and Irvine, all the altitudes of their camps, of where oxygen bottles were found, where Mallory was found. Pretty cool book, brand new, just out. And I'm psyched because there's on the back blurb under Jochen, of course, because he's the master. For a quarter century, I've been held captive by the ghosts of Mallory and Irvine and their mysterious disappearance on Mount Everest in 1924. Finally, Bob Edwards has meticulously assembled all of the facts and the clues and the countless possibilities surrounding their fate in a single fascinating book. Boop. That's a fun one. And then, if you just are sick of that, this one, my birthday present from my wife, The Lyrics, Paul McCartney. My man, love this guy, one of the greatest human beings, other than Jane Goodall, who's lived in my lifetime. Big Jane Goodall fan here. So I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see. I'll just do one. Peggy, thank you again. Thank you for the gifts. I do appreciate. If I've missed any questions, please put them in the comments below or email me or comment after this video goes up on its own right, and then put them in the comment thread, and I'll bring them with me to the next live, which I'll do next week. I'll probably take Thanksgiving week off, or maybe do an early one on who knows, Tuesday at noon or something maybe. But yeah, I see that idea that Krev about the glove, in case anybody was strolling on the glacier and then they could see that. So smart. Then they'd know to pick it up, right? All right. So last one, Mr. Chowdhury, all the dead bodies that are left behind in the mountain, did we know all of their names? My question, is there any chance that one of them is Sandy Irvine's body? That have been seen before, given that we're 99% sure the rest of Sandy is in the glacier. No, I would say no. In the 1960 Chinese film, which is fascinating, there is video of a body curled up on his side that is Maurice Wilson, who passed away in 1934 during his solo attempt below the North Pole, kind of near Advanced Base Camp. And you see his body, it's basically a skeleton with clothes on, and it's in their movie. And so that's, so I would think if Sandy had been found, he'd be like that or worse, or maybe not. But anyway, so my friends, I do hope you come back for the next one. I'm always humbled and honored when you take the time to hang out with me. I feel like I'm hanging out with you. I do really appreciate you so much, and hope you want to stick around for the video with Jochen. He's a fascinating guy. I'll do another one next week. If I didn't get to your questions, my apologies. Much love to you all, wherever you are. I hope you have a blessed day, evening, morning. I will keep my eyes and ears open for all your questions, and I try to get to them. I try to get to your comments in the videos as well. So at that, peace be with you, my friends. May you have a blessed day, evening, or breakfast, wherever you are. So stay tuned for the video coming up right about now.